Arya.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. We've got some interesting information coming out of Canadian politics when it comes to the digital election convoy that we were talking about in terms of getting your Liberal memberships voting for the next leader of the Liberal Party and essentially having a say in who our next leader is for the Liberal Party and who's going to go up against Pierre Poilievre in the next federal election. This was all being done in an attempt to show that two things. I did this for two reasons. For one, it was to show that we should have some form of control in deciding who our leaders are. That's the reason that these parties allot for a membership. This is why they allow you to hold membership. It's that you have your say before going to the polls, that these leaders are not handpicked by the party and thus not leaders that people would want running for the party. People would want representing the party. It's my sad duty to report today that it seems that installed governments are going to continue in this country, that hand-picked governments, fixed elections are going to continue. If you've been following myself, the pleb, other channels, we've been talking about voting for Chandra Arya. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I wanted to talk a little bit about what's happened with his campaign. Because what essentially we wanted to do was vote anybody but Carney or anybody who sets up for Carney. We're going to talk about that. But before we get into that, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to encourage you, with the new election on the rise, censorship is going to be at an all-time high. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Join our large Fringe majority here on the channel to make sure you get all the news as it breaks. Hit a thumbs up and a comment on the way out as well. It helps us incredibly, more than you know. With that being said, let's get on to today's topic. As we move over to Chandra's Twitter post earlier today. First and foremost, I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the hundreds of volunteers across Canada who have worked tirelessly, day and night, over the past 2 weeks to mobilize support for my Liberal leadership campaign. Your unwavering dedication inspires me. I'm deeply humbled and honored by the thousands of Canadians who joined the party to support what I stand for, my policies aimed at building an economically prosperous Canada for our children and grandchildren. Your support means the world to me. Thank you. Today I was informed by the Liberal Party of Canada I will not be permitted to enter the leadership race. While I await their official communication, I am carefully considering my next steps. This decision raises significant questions about the legitimacy of the leadership race and, by extension, the legitimacy of the next Prime Minister of Canada. I remain steadfast in my commitment to working hard for the benefit of all Canadians with a focused approach. I will continue striving to ensure a secure and prosperous future for generations to come. Of course, with a thank you picture in there. What's important to remember here, to take from his statement, is that when we were talking about voting for him, this huge influx of people signing up for the Liberal Party, we were trying to organize what was called the digital election convoy. We were trying to get people on board with getting memberships so that anybody, aside from Crystia, Freeland, Mark Carney, those who aim to do destruction for our country, would have to run against Pierre Poilievre, essentially making it easy mode for us to continue on the path of fixing this country by getting rid of the Liberals and watching their party disintegrate. What's been shown here today is that the fix is in, that when the site crashes because people are getting memberships, when online support is showing that, hey, people actually have a voice here. Well, the Liberals can't have that while they're in power. They're doing everything they can to silence people and say, well, let's find another loophole. Everything that's gotten us to this point in politics is because of the Liberals desperately clinging to power. When you look at Jagmeet Singh pushing us out of having an election, calling an election, holding the country hostage, when you look at placed mayors in different cities across the countries, installed politicians, it's all by design. What makes me say that? Well, last night, the pleb tweeted out, holy crap, we did it. Chandra is now the #1 trending topic on X. So, if he was trending on X, why wouldn't the Liberals want him to run? Well, it appears it has to do with the fact that he doesn't speak French. We've talked about this before. This was one of the reasons I thought it would be hilarious to see him debate Pierre for the federal election chair, because all Pierre would have to do is start speaking French and it's over. You see Northern Perspective chiming in here saying, for those that may be surprised that Chandra was disqualified from running in the leadership race, don't be. As much as we would love to point out some nefarious reason, there's a perfectly reasonable explanation that everyone deep down knows. And we called it out. Got to make sure to point out that they called it first, ladies and gentlemen. But of course, the pleb chiming in saying speaking French is not in their official rules, so no. They kicked Chandra out because he was going to destroy Mark Carney in a landslide. The amount of signups that the Liberal Party had in the last 48 hours was insane, confirmed by party insiders. You had Karina Gould even speaking out about it, mentioning that there's been an outpouring in people signing up for the Liberals. Of course, this is the most alarming statement to come out of it. The party can disqualify you for whatever they want. Who said it had to be in the official rules? Is that the stance of anybody who thinks that this country's in good hands, that thinks that we have a democracy? For anybody who preaches democracy, you're saying that, oh, they can fix the race any way they want to. They can only offer you the crappy candidates or the ones that really want to twist your country upside down. They don't have to play by the rules. Why shouldn't we just be okay with that? Right? Somebody mentioning down here, Carney doesn't speak French either. Yes, he does. Keep up, says Northern Perspective. Of course, down here, no, he doesn't. He offended Quebecers already with his take on French. He said he is now taking classes to brush up. How about you keep up? Now, before I get into that, and show that this is installed representatives for the Liberals, I want to highlight this comment because it really shows a lot here. I like this comment 100 times, the one that we are permitted for the record. Looks like it's turning into a ratio. This is just a BS excuse. He was fine to be a member for 3 terms, talking about Chandra. There's no law on leadership for PM for it. They were fine with Clark not speaking French, and Carney's been so bad, Quebecers called it offensive, and he is now in classes. Total BS excuse. This is where we talk about that when you look at the lineup of who is available to choose from right now in the Liberal Party. I know there's people out of Brampton that joined in and whatnot. There's other contenders coming in. But when you look at the main contenders, people who are actually in Parliament as well as Mark Carney, you've got Carbon Tax Carney, Crystia Freeland, who's linked to Carney through a godchild. You've got Karina Gould, who's paving the road for Carney, expected to lose on purpose to prop him up. And you had Chandra Arya, which has now dropped out and been told he doesn't qualify. So they've swept the deck to make it an easy win for Mark Carney. Why do I say Mark Carney? Well, he's been endorsed by the majority of the Liberal Party. Philip Champagne is giving him his endorsement later today, or already has by the time this video is out. They've swept the deck for Carney. Nobody's going to vote for Crystia Freeland. She couldn't balance a budget. She's froze bank accounts. She's the Wicked Witch of the WEF. However, Mark Carney, his pockets run deeper with the WEF. I want to highlight this because we talked about this first too, for those who want to gloat. Former UK Prime Minister Liz Truss on Mark Carney. This was during Trump's inauguration last week. I strongly recommend not backing Mark Carney for his policies on net zero. It was disastrous for Britain. It would be disastrous for Canada. This is the reason we don't want Mark Carney getting in. Let's take a listen to this clip, and then I'm going to show why Chandra being kicked out of this campaign was a complete attack on democracy. It was an attack on the free voting system to sweep the deck. Let's take a listen to Liz.
Just wanting to get your thoughts on Mark Carney and your relationship with him while you were Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and any advice you have to Canadians who think he might make a good Prime Minister.
Well, Mark Carney was Governor of the Bank of England, and under his tenure, too much money was printed, which did damage to the British economy and put our economy off track. He, at the last election, endorsed Rachel Reeves' economic policy. She's now become Chancellor. It's been a disaster for Britain. The country is heading for bankruptcy. So I would strongly recommend not backing Mark Carney or his policies on net zero, which have been disastrous for Britain and would be disastrous for Canada.
Do you trust his judgment overall, outside of ideological considerations?
Well, I believe that he made major mistakes in the management of the Bank of England. He has pushed net zero, which has been a disaster, not just for the UK, but for many countries across the world.
Thanks for your time, Prime Minister.
So, essentially, no endorsement from Liz Truss here for Mark Carney on the Bank of England and what he's done over in the UK. He's bankrupted them. He's flushed them down the toilet. For those who say Mark Carney speaks French, well, here's an article from Stratus Times. It was also in the Financial Post. It was on Bloomberg. Trudeau's cabinet lines up behind Mark Carney as ex-banker brushes up on French. So if he needs to brush up on his French, why is Chandra Arya being told that's the reason he's not allowed to run? The senior ranks of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's cabinet have made their choice on who they believe should replace him as Canada's Prime Minister, throwing their weight behind Mark Carney. Carney secured the backing of Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly, Military Barbie, Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault, Energy Minister Jonathan Wilkinson, and Labour Minister Stephen McKinnon. Shouldn't that tell you enough as to who's backing this guy and why nobody should want him in? He will receive a public endorsement from Industry Minister Francois-Philippe Champagne on January 26th. Again, possibly by the time this video is out, said a person close to him. The support shows that many ministers believe the former central banker is the best bet to counter U.S. President Donald Trump's trade threats. In what way? In what way is Mark Carney going to go to bat with Donald Trump? I don't see it. But he will boost the Liberal Party's electoral fortunes. That's my concern. When you talk about the next federal election, keep in mind, it's a small pocket of base per capita in Ontario, as well as Quebec, that decide who the next leader, essentially, of this country is going to be, whether it's a majority or a minority. The rest of the country fills the seats. So what you have here is a guy who's got strong backings from the Liberals, that while Pierre Poilievre is in a very good position right now for a supermajority running against Justin Trudeau, what does that do to his numbers when carbon tax Carney comes in and starts saying, I can run against Donald Trump. I can fix things. I'm not Justin Trudeau. So if you liked the Liberal Party, I'm going to give you rebates. I'm going to make your life easier. I'm going to do all these wonderful things. All you got to do is vote for me for Prime Minister. And all of a sudden, some of those woke votes from Toronto, from Hamilton, from Sudbury, Montreal. I know Montreal typically votes Bloc, but for anybody who typically voted Liberal, those votes start coming in, reducing the lead that Pierre has in Eastern Canada. It says that they also strengthen Carney's position in Quebec, traditionally a crucial bastion of Liberal support. Joly, Guilbeault, McKinnon, and Champagne are all from the French-speaking province. Carney, who's 59, grew up in Alberta. He wasn't born here, by the way. Has been working daily with aides on improving his French language skills, according to people familiar with the matter. So apparently he spoke already in Quebec, offended everybody. Now he's brushing up on his skills. For this matter, if he wins the Liberal leadership contest, becomes Prime Minister, and heads into a general election where he would be up against Pierre Poilievre, a fierce, fluently bilingual debater who leads the Conservative Party, Blanchette, who is with the Bloc. Joly, speaking with reporters on January 23rd, said it was a difficult choice to back Carney over Crystia Freeland, the former finance minister who entered the race last week. Again, they're tied by their godchildren. Joly said she chose Carney due to his proven ability to handle big crises such as Brexit. We all saw how that turned out, which unfolded while he was governor of the Bank of England in the 2000 global financial crisis in 2008, which erupted shortly before he became governor of the Bank of Canada. Guilbeault, a former Greenpeace activist, said he believes Carney is best placed to manage Trump and steer Canada's economy through an energy transition in the years ahead. Coming from the guy who's crippled the West and their energy sector, again, big red flag. I've known him and I trust him, and I have great faith in his abilities, he said. He also said the same thing about Justin Trudeau. Look where that's got us. The backing of Quebec ministers is important for the credibility of Carney's campaign, his first attempt at winning political office, as there are still questions about how well he can speak French without a script in front of him. There's the one sentence, the nail in the coffin. How well can this guy speak French without a script? That's no different than Arya could do, Chandra Arya. I'll just say Chandra. I know I'm mispronouncing his last name. You could give him a script. So why is Mark Carney still allowed to be in the race if it's a question of not being able to speak fluent French? He's being allotted the time to learn and brush up on his skills. It should be a source of concern for the Liberals who badly need Quebec in the next election, said Jeremy Guillot, a Montreal-based consultant who previously worked as an aide to Melanie Joly. No Liberal leader from outside of Quebec has won a general election in Canada since 1965. The Bloc, a party that represents Quebec's interests in Ottawa and promotes the province's independence, is doing well in public opinion polls and appears set to take seats from the Liberals. So, again, this is why he's brushing up on his French. It has nothing to do with him wanting to be prime minister. It's him wanting to get those seats. It's him wanting to pander to the French. I mean, this is where things are scary for our country. For anybody who wants to say, look, they got every reason to kick people out, it doesn't have to be in the rules, well, then doesn't that just state that when it comes to these elections, when it comes to leadership races, that these are hand-picked delegates, these are installed delegates, that we really have no say over who gets in, that there really is no control? Look, my politics are pretty simple at the end of the day. People want to say that by organizing this digital election convoy, that guys like myself, the pleb, that we're interfering in political democracy, that we're essentially trampling on people's rights to have free and fair elections. I hate to burst anyone's bubble, but over the last 10 years, specifically the last 5, we've seen a number of installed representatives. When you look at Calgary with failed woke Mayor Jody Gondek being installed, you look at Mayor Sohi in Edmonton, you look at Olivia Chow in Toronto. Look at Jagmeet Singh and his propped up position to hold Canada hostage over the last 2.5 years, while Justin Trudeau does whatever he likes with no accountability, no arrests, nobody resigning up until now. You'll have to excuse me for saying that sometimes in life I feel that when it gets that bad, I'm all for democracy. People have called me naive on this channel many times, saying that I believe too much in a restitution to our Canadian democracy with a new leader. But when the current government twists the knife in everyone's back and says, if you protest us, we'll smash your windows, we'll take your vehicles, we'll take your livelihoods, we'll freeze your bank accounts, we'll put you through the court system for years. When the government says, oh, you want an election, you're not happy? Well, that's okay. We'll just bribe a Maserati Marxist to hold the country hostage so we can just continue on our merry little way doing whatever we like. When you have a government that says, hey, I'm resigning, but I'm going to prorogue Parliament even though there is no reason to do so, it's technically illegal, but I'm going to do it anyways after I invoke the Emergencies Act, by the way, with no repercussions. You'll have to excuse me for saying I care enough about my country to do whatever is necessary to ensure that the leaders that show the most promise to make some changes for the better for Canadian citizens remains at the helm with a majority government in the next federal election. I'm not talking about election interference. I've never once told people who to vote for in these leadership races, but have mostly said we need to band together and we need to vote for anybody but Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney. I believe firmly that we stand on the precipice of a very dangerous time in Canada, that if Mark Carney were to take the leadership role, and I do believe he will at this point, when I see the shenanigans going on, when I see other channels saying we shouldn't be doing this, we shouldn't talk about this, let's just allow democracy to take its toll and find out where the cards land, that's scary. That's scary. I think that this country is in for a very rough ride moving forward if we see the likes of Mark Carney leading the Liberals into a federal election. Do I believe he'll be prime minister? No. But I do believe it makes a significant threat as to whether Pierre Poilievre has a majority or a minority government moving in to the next formation of government in Canada. Let me know what you guys think down below. Again, I want to try to keep it positive here on the channel, but we have to talk about reality. This is reality. This is why I want to talk about these things. Do you believe that Chandra was kicked out of the party because people were getting memberships? Do you believe that the Liberals are onto us, that they know what's going on and essentially want to put a stop to it? Do you believe that the next leader of the Liberal Party will be installed, not elected? Let me know your thoughts down below. If it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure to hit that button again, folks. Let's grow this channel as much as we can. I'd love to see a huge boost in subscribers. Hit your bell for notifications. Join me live here on the channel each and every Friday night for Friday Night Fringe, our live streaming show where we talk about everything that's happened this week in Canadian politics, everything coming up in the week ahead, as well as some back and forth within our community, joined by my beautiful wife, Mrs. Fringe. We look forward to hearing what you guys have to say outside of making these videos every Friday night, and we look forward to seeing you here for your first stream this Friday, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, here on the channel. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video and have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.